Hi, my name is Misty, and I donated a kidney to Teresa in 2014. Teresa was very fortunate that she did not have to go on dialysis yet. I found out about her situation through a Facebook post that she'd made, that her numbers had gotten low enough that her doctor had put her on the donor list. And I didn't really know Teresa, but she was a member of the same church that I went to, and just got that message that went through my head that said, you could be a living donor. Teresa's situation was a little bit different from some kidney recipients. She had a hereditary disease, but she was fortunate that her doctors had been watching her closely for so long. She had been very diligent with her diet and her lifestyle, and her kidneys were still working, but they were at such a low capacity that's why she was put on the list. I learned a lot through the process about kidney disease and the fact that hers was hereditary. She had family members. Her mother died from the disease, and a sister had the disease as well, and I believe both of her kids as well. And she had no one in her family that was able to donate to her. So we both realized pretty early on that this was going to be a miracle, that God was working through both of us. So I decided to donate the kidney because I really believe that it was God telling me to do that. The first notice that I got that Teresa was in need of a kidney was through a Facebook message that she had posted. And at the time when I saw it, I didn't know Teresa. She was a member of my church, which is why we were Facebook friends. But the message hit me for some reason, and my mind literally just, like, you get those little voices in your head, and it said, you can be a living donor. I have a donor card in my wallet that I carry, for when I pass away, that they can take whatever they want. But it literally hit me, in the gut right then, that I could be a living donor. It kind of went in one ear and out the other, or passed right through my brain, however you want to say that, until I walked into our church the very next Sunday, and Teresa was the first person that I laid eyes on. And I walked over to her. I hadn't had a discussion with my husband. I hadn't even really thought about it at all. But when I saw her, I just knew that this was God's plan. And I walked over to her and I said, I think I'm supposed to give you a kidney. And she said, I have the paperwork in the car. So the prompt for this question, it was when I did the research on kidney donation, what I was surprised to learn. And honestly, I didn't do any research. I literally just took this at face value, that this was what God was asking me to do. And that I was just going to take it one day at a time and just do the next step. The first step was to fill out the paperwork. The next step was to go to the kidney clinic and get registered. And then, there was step after step after step after that. It was a long process. It took us from November of 2013 through about September of 2014 when the surgery was deemed a go. There was a lot involved in that. I had to lose some weight. They wanted me to be healthy afterwards. But as far as research goes, I literally didn't do any. I just took it day by day and appointment by appointment. We got a third confirmation regarding this being really what God intended when we went to the clinic, and they told us that the chances of her finding a deceased donor were less than 5%. And the other 3 people that she had tested were not even a close match. And while I was not a perfect match, they had a procedure that was going to allow them to manipulate Teresa's blood system to be able to accept my kidney. So I still don't understand all that. I know that they introduced some antibodies into her blood so that it would match enough with my kidney for her to be able to accept it. And again, I didn't even do the research on that. I just accepted what they told me at face value because I knew I was being led to this. So I don't recommend that everybody do things exactly the way I did. When I told Teresa that I was supposed to donate a kidney to her, I had not had a discussion with my husband. It literally just hit me. It came over me that was what I was supposed to do. And on impulse, I just walked over to her and I told her. So that may not be the best way for most people to do it. And it caused a few discussions between my husband and I. He was very worried. That just kind of is his nature, and my nature is just kind of jump before I, think a whole lot about things. But we worked through those differences in our personalities, and the appointment where we were told that Teresa's chances were less than 5% of getting a deceased donor. He was at that appointment with us. We were to bring our families to that appointment, and it hit him then that this was being led by someone way, bigger than the two of us. And so I think he got it then. As far as my son goes, he was, probably 15, 16. And he didn't seem to be too worried at all. I've kind of, raised him to believe that we do what God calls us to do, and God will take care of it when he calls us. So he didn't really show any anxiety or any worry at all about it. The rest of my family was kind of a mixed bag. Some people were totally supportive and, impressed, and others were thinking I was totally a nutcase. So, just got to do what you feel is the right thing to do. So the next question was, what were my fears and questions through it all? And I don't remember having specific fears. I just had a peace and a comfort about it once I made the decision to do it, which was very early on. So really, I just took each day, each step, each procedure as it came. There was lots of blood work. I didn't ask those questions. I had psychiatric evaluations from the chaplain at the clinic. I didn't question that. I didn't really have any fears. I really, really was convinced that this was being God-led, and he gave me, that peace that surpasses all understanding throughout the whole procedure. There was a situation in the middle where, I'm trying to think. I don't remember what month it was, but it was before I was cleared to be her donor. I mentioned that I had to lose some weight, and I was in the process of that. And she got a call to go to the hospital that there was a deceased kidney, or a deceased donor kidney, that was on its way to the hospital, and that they thought it might be a possible match. And that was when really the questions came. It was kind of a roller coaster that day. And it was for her as well as for me. We were both just emotionally trying to figure out why God would call me to do this, why God would convince me that, and even why the doctors would convince us that my kidney was her best chance. And then for them to find a deceased donor. And it turns out, that day was just kind of an emotional day. It turns out that was not the case. She was not a match for that kidney. And, I don't know the purpose behind that day. And so there was there's some questions in my mind about that particularly. But as far as donating the kidney, I'm a little bit weird. My biggest thing that I wanted to do was to be able to watch the surgery, like stay awake, have them just do a local or whatever and stay awake and watch the surgery. But everybody in my family and everybody at the hospital and everybody at the clinic kind of nixed that idea. So I ended up being asleep. But I think that would have been cool. I'm just weird that way, though. Yeah, so I really wasn't really afraid of anything. I believe that, the prayers of our church, our community, our families, everybody that was surrounding us in this whole thing created the peace that I needed to just get through it and to get Teresa through it. It was kind of a long process from the beginning to the end. So, patience is not really one of my virtues, but we did it. We made it through. There was really not a lot of fear there. Teresa had a peace about it, and I had a peace about it. So, no fear. Yeah, so basically the only research that I did was regarding the actual surgery, and I was very curious about that. It was explained to me that if they had to take one kidney, it was going to be different location where they went in, and if it was another kidney, the other side, it would go through the stomach and the belly button, which is how it happened for me. I did watch, I think, a couple of videos on YouTube, just watching the actual procedure being done on someone. That's kind of the reason why I had that whole inkling to ask them to do the surgery while I was awake, but that didn't work out. So anyway, that was really the only research that I can think of that I did. I know that Teresa and her doctor had, talked, and she would share stuff with me. But honestly, that was really, more about how it would be for her, what the effects would be for her and all of that. And I just threw all that up to God and let him take care of all those details. So really didn't do a whole lot of research. Yeah, the financial side was, I guess, a big surprise, because it never occurred to me when I, told Teresa that I was supposed to donate a kidney to her that there might be a financial burden on my end. And fortunately, there wasn't. I'm not even sure. I'm assuming her insurance covered my portion, or the kidney clinic did. I don't even know. The only expense I had throughout the whole thing was the gas money that it took to go to the appointments for the blood draws and the testing that they did on me. And, there were, 10 appointments like that. So it was not a burden for me at all financially. And for that, I'm very thankful and very blessed by that. So my family was a little bit worried initially. None of them knew, the ins and outs of it. None of us did, really. And so they were worried for my safety a little bit. And, what would be involved, how much pain I would be in, how long I would take to recover, all that good kind of stuff. But I just had the peace and comfort of knowing that God had pulled me into it and called me to it. So I just kept assuring them that it would all be okay. So the one moment that I thought maybe I should just give up was when they told me I needed to lose some weight. I had kind of let my weight go, and I was not at a healthy weight. And because of my family background, health background, they were concerned about health issues for me after donating the kidney based on my weight. And so that was kind of a moment there. And then we had another moment when Teresa got called in for a deceased donor. And that was a day of, kind of a roller coaster of emotions. But it turns out that was not a good match for her. And so we were back on. The thing that changed my mind regarding the weight loss was that, I just kept saying God had called me to it. So God would provide a way and help me figure out a way to lose the weight. And he did. It was kind of a crazy whirlwind of things that happened after that. But I was able to lose about 25 pounds in about 6 weeks. And so, once that started happening, I was just like, yeah, this is okay. No big deal. My support system mainly came through our church. Both Teresa and I were members there, and just the love and support from everybody there was very helpful. There was lots of prayer, lots of, checking on us, seeing if we needed anything, that kind of stuff, especially after the surgeries for both of us. And we just had that community of love and support from all of our friends at church. What really helped me get through it the most was just knowing that this was what I was called to do. From the very beginning to the very end, through the entire process, I had a complete peace and knowing that God brought me to this, God would get me through it. So, I had no fears, no doubts, maybe a few concerns here and there, but really I just had a complete peace about it. So the lifestyle changes that I had to make were initially started before the donation ever happened. And, it was midway through the whole lengthy process of tests and, exams and all that kind of stuff. And they discovered that my weight was not at a healthy weight, and that could present problems based on my family history after the surgery. So that became, my number one priority was to get the weight off. Fortunately, God brought me to the kidney donation. He also brought me the solution for the weight loss. And so I was able to lose the weight fairly quickly that I needed to get off, and then just continued using the same solution post-surgery and was able to lose quite a bit more weight. So that whole thing in and of itself was a blessing because my weight was, like I said, not at a healthy level, and it's been able to change my life in that way. I mean, obviously the donation changed Teresa's life, but being able to get that weight off changed my life in many ways. I honestly don't remember how long the surgery took. I know that my husband was a little concerned because it took a little longer than what they had told him, but I think that was a backup in the department. I don't think that was due to any complications while I was on the table. I was only in the hospital for, I think, a couple of days, and my total recovery time was less than 2 weeks. So as they were rolling me back to surgery, I don't really remember what I was thinking. I do remember being ready for the surgery to be done and for this process to be over. Teresa and I had both discussed a timeline based on our lifestyle and what was coming up in our life that we wanted to get this done by a certain date. And so that was happening, and I was just ready for it to all be over. The best moment after the surgery was being able to walk down to Teresa's room. We were on the same floor. We were literally just a couple of rooms away from each other, and just finding out that everything had gone well for her as it had for me, and that she was now going to be living without fear of, kidney failure. And I was back to my normal self about 2 to 3 weeks after the surgery. After 2 weeks, I felt really good and was getting out and about and doing all kinds of stuff, but it took a little bit longer for one little portion of the incision to heal. So about 3 weeks later, I was feeling really good. The at-home recovery, there weren't very many restrictions really, other than just not being able to drive. I only had one complication, and that was due to the pain medicines they have me on. I don't process those things very well, and so they would lower my blood pressure, and I kind of almost passed out once. But I could eat anything I wanted. I could have visitors if I felt up to it. I was a little tired for a couple of days, and obviously not able to drive, so I wasn't, I was able to go places if I had a driver, but that was really the only restriction. It hasn't changed my life much at all. What I would advise others who are considering it is just, if you feel like you're being called to do it, absolutely just do it, and prepare as much as you can for your health, and have a support system around you and that kind of stuff. But I say just take a leap of faith.